Okay, we're going to be doing a video about how to solve quadratic equations. So a quadratic equation is an equation that has let's get rid of this. So a quadratic equation is something that's got oh, change the colour of my pen as well, or you won't see anything. A term like that in it. So anything of the form like a x. We'll put an a here because it can have a coefficient there. B x plus c. Anything that's of this form is a quadratic. And we've seen before that they can be put into plus a x plus b. When I say that a and b here are not the same as up here. So a quadratic equation can be put into a form like this, and say if this was equal to 0, we can set x plus a equal to 0, because that's just a number. And any number, if that's 0 and we're times it by this number, we're going to get 0. And we can set x plus b equal to 0, and then you would then have x equals minus a and x equals minus b. So there would be two solutions to this quadratic equation. I'm going to change these. I'm going to call that y. I'm going to call this z, and I'm going to call this v. There you go. So this equation here would have two solutions, minus a and minus b. We'll see how that works out. Let's try an example. So let's solve this equation. X squared, plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. And we're going to do this by factorising. So we have x and x. Now remember, when we do factorising, we look at this number here, the third term here, that's 3. So we think, what numbers can we multiply together to get 3? Well, we can get 3 and we can get 1, and it's a positive, so we can have plus 3 and plus 1, or we could have minus 3 and minus 1. So we need to be aware of negative terms as well. Now, the two numbers that we have here must multiply together to get this 3, but they must add together to get the coefficient on the x term. So they have to add together to get 4. Minus 3 add minus 1 is minus 4, so that's wrong. That will not work. Plus 3 add plus 1 is 4, so the terms must be plus 1 plus 3. And it doesn't matter which order we put them in here. And if that's equal to 0. So whatever this term here, so the solution for this equation, and a quadratic equation is going to have usually two solutions. So x plus 1 equal to 0. So x must equal negative 1. Oops. Is going to be a solution. So if x was minus 1 add 1 is 0, and then that would be 2, this bit with 2, but 2 times minus 2 times 0 is always going to be 0. So minus 1 is a solution. X plus 3 equals 0, so x equals minus 3 is the other solution. So that is the solution for this quadratic equation. Now, sometimes we can have a quadratic equation where the x squared term, the coefficient on the x squared term isn't 1. So in this case, it's going to be 2. This makes it a wee bit more tricky. When we're looking for a solution, we've got to be aware of that. So we're going to have 2x here and then x. Now let's think about, again, we need to think about what numbers are going to multiply together to get 5. So you could have minus 1 plus 5, or plus 1 and minus 5. Now this time, whichever term goes here is going to get multiplied by 2. And so we need to be aware of that for working out this term. So let's say we had this one, so 2, and we put the 5 here. 2 times plus 5 is going to be multiplied by plus 5 is going to be 10. Then we've got a 1 here, so 10 minus is a negative, so minus 1 is going to be 9. But this is a minus 9. So let's think about it here. Let's think 2 times minus 5 is going to be minus 10. Plus 1 is going to give us minus 9. So let's do that. Let's put that in here. So minus 5 here. And plus 1, because we've got 2 positive and a negative multiplied together gives a negative, and then we would have, let's just quickly multiply this out just to make sure it works. So when you're not sure if you've got the right solution, once you put the numbers in your bracket, multiply it out again to see if you get the original answer. So 2x squared minus 10x plus x, and then 1 times minus 5 is minus 5. 2x squared minus 9x, so minus 10 plus 1 is minus 9, minus 5, and that's the same. So we know this is the correct factorisation. So that's going to be equal to 0. So again, we need to set this term in this bracket to 0. 2x plus 1 equals 0. So let's solve it. 2x equals, let's take away 1 from each side, minus 1. Divide through by 2 is going to be equal minus a half is a solution. Then x minus 5 equals 0, plus 5 on each side, x equals 5. So these are going to be the two solutions for this one here. Let's look at a different type of quadratic. Sometimes we have only two terms in our equation. So in this one, we've only two terms. So we can take out 2x, and then we're going to have 5x minus 2 equal to 0. And so that we've put 2x equals 0, so x must be 0 as a solution. Then 5x minus 2 equal to 0, so 5x equals 2, x equals 2/5. That's a solution as well. For these ones, keep it as a fraction. It makes it look neater than writing a big long decimal. Sometimes you might have an equation where there's only one x term. So this one here, what we can do is we can find out what x squared would be, then take the square root. 5x squared, so let's plus 80 on both sides, equals 80, then divide through by 5, so x squared equals 80 over 5, which is going to be 16, and then take the square root of each side, so x is going to be plus or minus the square root of 16, which is plus or minus 4. So there's two solutions. When you take the square root, there's two solutions, a positive and a negative, and you need to remember that would be the case. That's really important, because obviously minus 4 times minus 4 is going to give you plus 16. So that's just something to always be aware of. Whenever you take square roots, there's a negative term that is a possible solution as well as the positive. So I hope that helps.